officially, I guess I can say this now because we're all done eating the turkey and the pumpkin pie and if you like that stuff, the cranberry sauce. Happy holidays from the Jeff Meacham Network, everybody. Christmas is on the horizon. We're a month out. We are the dads, not always on wrestling. I am, of course, the West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham, decked out in my Undertaker best because we here to talk about the man from the dark side. And to my left on screen, to my right in reality, is the man who is already under mistletoe inspection duty because that's what he do. He is the renegade himself, JJ Williams, and we both have talked about this many times over the years. This is our favorite time of year. You know, I started November 1st. I wasn't quiet about Renegades. I already had my Santa hat on. I don't give a shit.
Same. You know, I've been playing my Christmas playlist in the car when I go out shopping. It is the most wonderful time of the year for me. All the people that I see on Facebook that are talking about don't start with the Christmas crap. We still haven't got Thanksgiving yet. I click to comment on. I click the little gift button, and I find Mariah Carey in her All I Want from Christmas Is You Glory, and I share that gif on their comments so that not only do they get Christmas, but damn it, they get the Queen of Christmas.
That's right.
Mariah Carey in that cute as hell red Mrs. Claus outfit that she wears.
That's right. I have long stood on the side of, oh my God, here we go again with Mariah. You know what? This year, I don't give a shit anymore. I really don't, because it's been great. I loved her post-Halloween thing she put up. That was the greatest thing you shared with me in years. Like literally years. I was still laughing about that hours later. Like, that's right. She smashed the pumpkin. Sorry, Billy. And my God, was that hysterical. So
for those of you that didn't see it, she put out a post and there were 3 pumpkins with the words, "It's not time," carved in them as a statement on it's not time for Christmas music yet. And here she comes strutting out there in her red high heels, Kelly Pickler style, and that Mrs. Claus suit that only Mariah can fill out.
Yeah.
And she walks up to the middle pumpkin, the one that says not, and smashes it to bits so that it now says, "It's time," and All I Want for Christmas Is You starts playing.
That's right. And
brilliant stuff. I used to adore that song. I do get why some people hate it now because it is so played to death.
Oh my God.
But it is on my Christmas playlist.
Yep.
And considering that I don't listen to the radio, I can deal with it because I usually put my playlist on shuffle, which means maybe I'll hear it, maybe I won't. Right. Maybe during the 30, 55 days of Christmas that I celebrate, considering that I started on the 1st, maybe I'll hear it 55 times once a day. Maybe I'll only hear it 30 times in those 55 days. You never know what you're going to get because my Christmas playlist is like a box of chocolates, baby.
It's funny, you know, we talked about, we were in the season already. Shoot, this time last week, we were reviewing all 3 of us. Say Mr. Banks. So, it was
a family affair.
It's been a wonderful month, and you and I went back and forth on who was going to be where as far as the top matches of the respective careers went, and you hit it right on the head. Yes, Undertaker is very much a Halloween themed character, but the Survivor Series has been tied to his origins forever because he debuted. I mean, last year was his farewell because it was Survivor Series, 30 years to the day.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was also 30 years to the day of Aaron's birthday. It was the same. His birthday in 1990 and 2020 was the Undertaker's debut and farewell. So it all ties in together. And I, for one, am looking forward to what you have to say about the Undertaker's matches, because I know that our lists are going to be maybe not 100% identical, but you're definitely going to have ones that I can very easily comment on because the Undertaker is a favorite in this house. He always has been.
Same.
He became my dad's favorite.
When we got into wrestling, he was my dad's favorite, just like I know he was your dad's favorite.
Well,
so.
yeah, Undertaker became my dad's favorite once Randy Savage kind of not fell off the radar, but just kind of like wasn't around a whole lot anymore. And he would pop in and out of mainstream celebrity period off and on over the years before he passed away. But the Undertaker really, you Macho Man in and out of life doing his thing, cream of the crop. But the Undertaker, it was definitely before we saw him main event WrestleMania, which I'm sure one of us will get to eventually here. But he's been a perennial favorite. And, being a Hulkamaniac, it was hard to like the Undertaker in 1991. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But, it's he.
Not going to lie, I almost put that match on there just as a big F you to Hulkamania.
I kind of figured you would, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. Or the 2002 rematch, which was even more of a cluster. Please. Lord. With all due respect to both men, jeez, yeah. And everybody else involved in that cluster, but they've called Kane the constant because of his longevity, and they've rightly called the Undertaker the conscience of the WWE, both in storyline and in that locker room, in this business. He is the one guy that's been all right. He's very much Popeye. He is what he is, and that's all that he is. He is that the ebb and flow. He is the one that is consistent. He'll give you his best. He'll give you everything. And the fact that we're only going to do, in theory, probably not exactly 20, but we're only going to do 20 matches, much like with Edge a month ago. The other thousands honorable mentions.
Legit.
So with that being said,
with the exception of maybe like the matches against, Giant Gonzalez and Superfly Snuka, and
it's funny that you mention the matches that you just go, I Goldberg and Saudi Arabia, for example. Every one of those stories or matches, even if the match was hot garbage, the story at least was there. Even with Giant Gonzalez, because it led to a few. Granted, that poor man was saddled with the worst feuds, I think, prior to 96, I want to say, WrestleMania. His WrestleMania matches were what they were, and they were part of the streak, but the stories, with the exception of Jake Roberts, which was a great story, kind of was what it was. He was handed you need to get the big guy over, you need to get the large guy over, you need to get the gimmick over. Okay. But there was still a great story woven therein, and nobody knows about story better than you. So at this point, let us have it, bro. I can't wait to see what you have to say.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get this out straight out the gate with all the cards on the table right now. I've told you numerous times off the air. 7 of my 10 matches are from WrestleMania.
Well, there you go.
Because I just feel like WrestleMania is, as they call it, the granddaddy of them all, the Super Bowl of professional wrestling.
That's right.
It is the pinnacle. It's what everyone aspires to. So when you try to look at some of these matches and people that he's feuded with for a long time, with the exception of the Giant Gonzalez and the Superfly Snukas and some of those that are just like the big boss mans, and you're just, oi. More often than not, one of the better matches in the feud is going to be the Mania match, if not the best match of the feud. And my number 10 match comes from WrestleMania. And honestly, I hemmed and hawed about which match from this feud to put on my list.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I had to go with the Mania one for sentimental reasons, because it's the only WrestleMania I ever attended.
Oh, there you go.
Number 10, Taker Orton from Mania 21.
Nice.
And you figure the story that led into this. You figure Cowboy Bob was getting ready to go in the Hall of Fame and started making appearances on TV. And, just bringing the legacy to the storyline. We've discussed ad nauseum how I feel like, had Randy not been such a bad Randy backstage at this time,
right,
He should have been the one to end the streak here because he was in the midst of the legend killer gimmick. And what better legend to kill than that of the streak at WrestleMania?
Yep.
We've also talked ad nauseum about how the majority of this card and the show was hot garbage. I remember it fonder than some people critically look at it because I was there. Again, it's the only Mania I ever attended, so it's always going to hold a special spot in my heart as a result. It's for damn sure the only time I ever cried for Hulk Hogan, and we all know how much I was never a Hulkamaniac.
No.
But God damn it, when that music hit and he came out to save Eugene, I was a blubbering idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Hulkamania!
It's real, damn it.
That's where I start off my list.
Love it, man. I love it. That's
Orton
great.
and Taker from Mania.
Ironically enough, there's not one Randy Orton match on my list with Undertaker. Not one, which I surprised myself with that. I'm not going to lie.
My next match, number 9, is from WrestleMania. And it's from a WrestleMania that came around when I was long passed out of my fandom.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the only reason I went back after the fact to watch this is 2 reasons. Number 1, the opponent.
Right. And
number 2, when I found out that it was going to be his final match. The phenomenal one, AJ Styles.
Nice.
We have talked, again, I'm going to use this word a lot, I think, on this show, ad nauseum, about our adoration of the phenomenal one. When I found out that he was going on television and calling Mark out,
right?
I was like, holy hell, AJ, are you trying to die?
Right.
I had to see this match.
Yep.
And while it may not be your traditional match, it was definitely of theatrical nature. Holy hell, did it deliver.
Yeah.
It made up for some of the atrocities that Taker had in his more recent years. You know, BOD versus DX, the Goldberg match. It's, although there were plenty of other opportunities for him to have been like, I am done, and walk away here. That was, excuse the pun here, a great nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
For the legacy of the dead man, because he made up for those atrocities and will be remembered as he always would have been, as an icon, a legend. But at least he didn't walk away on a clunker, a stinker.
Now, when you think about, he could have walked away very easily after the Hell in a Cell with Hunter, which I'm sure one of us will get to, as he could have walked away when they actually did the whole thing where he was walking away against Roman, and they didn't execute it the whole way through. This was great. He rode off into the darkness
after Brock ended the streak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Streak's over. What else is there for me now?
Right. Yeah. They mentioned this on the documentary. You know, what dragons are left to chase at this point? The streak's over. Now what? So there was at least 3 different times where it could have been okay. That's it. Call it. And by the grace of God and I guess a pandemic, you know, they were allowed to do this match, and it was a wonderful send-off.
Yes. My number 8 is going to be one of the few that does not come from WrestleMania.
All right.
As a matter of fact, it's not even the Dead Man.
Ooh.
It's the American Badass.
Nice.
From Vengeance 2001.
There you go.
against Rob Van
Right.
Dam. You know, this was something that the Undertaker did not need.
Nope.
What purpose did him beating Rob for the hardcore title really serve for him? It did nothing for Taker's career. It did nothing for the title. There was no elevation of making the hardcore title more legitimate by giving it to Taker. No disrespect to how quote unquote badass the American Badass was.
Right.
But, you know, you figure RVD was coming from the land of extreme, having the hardcore title, he helped elevate it a little bit. Giving it to
very
Taker.
much.
The only thing that we really got as far as a payoff from Taker having it was Taker dropping it to Maven.
I was going to say, had Maven been more of a success long term, it would have been a lot more worthwhile for him to be the champion. But and you know, it's like all those things. You talk about being at WrestleMania, you know, at 21. I was at WrestleMania 2000, which was one of the worst ones ever. Always in my heart. I was there when Maven beat The Undertaker, thanks to The Rock and Al Snow and everybody else. So seeing that moment was cool for me because, you know, I liked Maven on Tough Enough. I didn't like Maven when I met the guy. You know, subsequently, career later, whatever. But, you know, seeing that moment of, you know, not only did he eliminate him from the Royal Rumble, which was, you know, it's like, okay, thank you, Maven. We love you. Good night. But then he gets another one over on him by winning the hardcore title. It's like, damn, they are getting behind this guy. And, you know, it was cool for a while. And then, you know, they had the whole, I still say the brand split hurt Maven more than they intended it to, because he was hardcore champion and they had him win at WrestleMania. At the very end of the night, he walked out the way he walked in, and then he just kind of petered out. Like, he had that brief moment with the 04 Survivor Series stuff. That was it.
Yeah.
Like he kind of faded away in the distance. And I think that had his career gone longer and he'd been a more definitive champion with the hardcore title, that Undertaker's reign would have meant more too, if that makes any sense.
Possibly. But regardless, RVD and Taker was a tremendous match. And
yes.
I know, knowing Rob the way you know Rob,
right,
it still probably makes Rob a little giddy that he got to have those matches with the Phenom.
Yeah, I'm again, you know, it wasn't necessary for him to be hardcore champion, but you know, you have to remember the Undertaker wasn't always on top of the card guy. That's what I said earlier. He never said I have to be at the top. He was never that guy. The hardcore championship is
the Undertaker for his entire career, and I'm not trying to cheapen his main event time or his main event runs, but Mark Calloway, the Undertaker, was a utility player.
Right.
Wherever Vince needed him,
right,
bloop, there he was.
Yep.
You need him in the tag division with the Big Show or with Kane or with whoever, throw him in a tag match. Give him a tag run with the belts. You need him in the main event scene, whether it's going against Austin, Rocky, Hunter, Hogan, you name it, Angle. Put him there. You need him to get over some of the talent that you just brought in during the invasion. You throw him in there.
Yeah.
You know, Taker was a utility player, and that is one of the things that always endeared him to me.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I always strive to be that utility player in my careers.
Yeah. You hear the phrase utility player, it comes off with a negative connotation. Why, I don't know.
It shouldn't, because in its definition, a utility player is that guy you can rely on to do anything.
Yep. And Undertaker and the gimmick were so reliable that you could put them anywhere, that the term utility player became much more like, okay, this guy can do anything we ask him to do. So if we need to, we can. I mean, he went from a major marquee match at 30 to, okay, Bray needs something to do, to, okay, we're bringing Shane back, to going back to the main event the following year against Roman, to a 2-minute squash following year to bring it back again. It just, the way the character evolved at the very end with WrestleMania and his career overall, again, it shows how much of a utility key player he was and had always been for 30 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For my number 7, we go back to WrestleMania.
Okay.
And the storyline leading up to this match was definitely controversial, as the longtime manager of the dead man had recently passed in real life and was incorporated into the on-air shenanigans as a result.
Yep.
Taker Punk from Mania 29.
I don't think it's way overlooked.
It does, especially considering what happened to Punk within the company, where his career went
over the next year,
the way he left.
Yep.
But this match was so good. The storyline, the match itself, you got Hell's Gate, you've got the Anaconda Vice, you've got two guys that love mixed martial arts getting in there and having just an amazing beat down. And then you factor in the Paul Bearer part.
Yeah.
And how we had just lost Percy and him dumping the ashes out of the urn and just smearing them on himself.
And Heyman,
and as controversial as everybody thought that was, and as disrespectful as everybody thought that was, myself included, but then to take a step back and think Percy would have loved that shit.
Oh God. 100, yeah, no way.
Percy would have ate that shit up.
Yeah, he would have.
To know that he was still part of that angle.
Yep.
He would have just eaten it up.
That is the one thing I look back on as a fan and get sad about. One of the many, I should say, but definitely one of the top few is that Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle as a manager, never got to be across ringside from Paul Heyman, Paulie Dangerously as a manager or an advocate. Because by the time Paul really hit his stride as a manager, advocate, whatever, you only saw them interact really once, and that was that god-awful concrete crypt nonsense. And Percy wasn't even at ringside. He was in that concrete, encased in that concrete. It was like, okay. So I would have loved to see, and again, Paul was doing ECW, so you weren't going to see him be in WWF during the Undertaker's heyday when Percy was with him. But man, just the idea of Paul sending his Dangerous Alliance against the Undertaker would just screams like, yes, please. So, but it was very, very bizarre to see Paulie as Percy, as Paul Heyman. I'm not gonna lie, Paul Bearer, that was very weird.
Well, and to get deeper into it, you think that Mark Calloway was a Paul Heyman guy.
I was gonna say Mark Callis, man. Yep.
So you've got two Paul Heyman guys fighting it out. Holy hell, could you imagine the storyline if Paulie had turned on Punk to align himself with Taker? Yeah. And then the story unfold that Taker was a Paul Heyman guy back in the day. Like, do you realize what that could have done?
And then when you weave it further and you go back and watch The Last Ride and remember, Paul E was the one that called Bruce Pritchard, like, you know what? WWE's got this guy. They're not doing shit with him. Have Vince look at this guy. Again, not trying to kiss the Paul E Jew butt too much here, but, without Paul E, there's no Undertaker, special. Folks. Jesus. Anyway. But a great match that, again, because of Punk's departure, gets overlooked way too often. It's bullshit.
Yeah. As I'm running through these Taker matches, I don't know if it's been done yet because we know I haven't been a fan in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
But now that his career is officially over, I would love to see a DVD release like the Mr. WrestleMania
Mm-hmm.
with Undertaker sitting down and talking about every match of the streak, watching them back, giving insight, optional commentary track of him as he watches the match,
Right.
little bumper before and after each match,
Right.
thoughts on rewatching those. I know they've done a few streak DVDs, but now that his career is officially done,
right,
I'd love a definitive streak DVD like that.
Yeah, I love a WrestleMania DVD because I mean, figure there's at least 2 or 3 losses in there, so I'd like a complete WrestleMania retrospective with Undertaker, like with Shawn, because like you said, Shawn was called Mr. WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure he's under 500 at WrestleMania. So
I'm not saying to omit the matches that he lost, but every single match within that WrestleMania career, I want to see him dissect and break down every one of them.
Especially when you figure that the majority of the guys he faced are still at least alive and able to, process their thoughts with it too. Mm-hmm. It'd be cool to have perspective.
For my number 6, it's probably the deepest cut that I'm going to dig up this list.
Okay.
Because it doesn't come from a pay-per-view.
Oh, wow.
It actually comes from Raw. The American Badass, Big Evil even, I think.
Probably.
Versus Jeff Hardy in the ladder match.
Oh, yeah.
Never in your wildest dreams when they announced this match did you ever think you would see Taker in a ladder match.
Right.
Never in your wildest dreams when they announced this match did you think that Jeff Hardy, the ladder match specialist, would lose a ladder match. I honestly feel that everybody watching this match unfold thought it was going to be Hardy's time. He was so over like Rover at this point.
Very true.
And then he lost.
Yeah.
And he didn't just lose, he got beat down.
Oh, yeah.
But he got back up.
Yep.
And he got beat down again. And he got back up to the point where he earned the dead man's respect, which is something that you've heard in interviews with other people. Taker, Mark, whatever you want to call him, does not give his respect away easily. But both Hardy and Punk in the last match earned Taker's respect.
When you think about Undertaker in character, just holding his head, just shaking his head, going, "God damn, you crazy!" With Jeff Hardy there.
And it basically turned him babyface because he had been the heel.
Yeah.
But the fact that he came back in, raised Hardy's hand, showed that he earned that respect, by proxy, virtually turned Taker back babyface.
Yep. I mean, granted, he was still heel as champion for the next, month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was, and he didn't really officially go across that line again until the feud with the Un-Americans. But yeah, that him having Jeff Hardy earn his respect got the fans back on his side, because man, when he turned on JR at that, it was like, not a fan of this. I don't like this shit. And then he beats up RVD, who everybody loves. Then he picks on Maven, who everybody sympathized, tolerated. I don't know about liked, but
I like
The Rock, and he beats up a co-owner father who had his son and best friend bludgeoned. He was Big Evil. He was a deep, dark son of a bitch. And then he bludgeoned Hogan again and became the WWE champion. So yeah, it was a long, not quite a full year, but it was a long process of, all right, when do we get to cheer your ass again? This was completely organic. I guarantee it wasn't planned. I guarantee it wasn't one of those, okay, we're going to do this and this. And it's just a simple raising the hand and a shake of head like, God damn, kid, I beat your ass and you're still sitting here wanting more. I'm gonna let you live today, dude. And he did. And had Jeff not gone off the rails himself, made man.
Yep. All right, we're at the halfway point, and
Yes.
I'm going to apologize in advance for this graphic because I could not find an official match graphic for this.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I could find it was like as an advertisement, you know, the match you can't miss.
Right.
So my number 5 is the only one that comes from before I became a fan and watching full time.
Oh.
Although it does come from my birthday pay-per-view.
Ah.
SummerSlam 96.
Nice.
The Boiler Room Brawl.
Well, there you go.
The only one I believe to ever exist.
Boiler Room?
Yes.
There was actually one more, sadly enough.
Okay.
Against the Big Show in 99.
Okay. But still, it's a gimmick that was not beaten to death.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I really enjoyed it. You know, it was the type of thing that you didn't know what to expect from it.
Right.
You know, and I even went back and I watched the first few moments of it, trying to find like an image, hoping they would throw it before the match that I could just screenshot.
Right.
But watching the Undertaker walk through the boiler room and the shadows and everything, and then Mankind sneak up from behind to start the attack, just like shit straight out of a horror movie.
Gonna say horror movie. Yep, very much so.
And you know how much we love and adore horror movies. So to see that type of presentation in 1996,
yep,
before Hell in a Cell, before the Ministry, so cool to go back and re-experience that stuff. And
right.
It could have very easily been Hell in a Cell, but I feel like everybody talks about Hell in a Cell.
Right.
I wanted to go a little bit deeper to where their rivalry first really began.
Yep.
And that's why I chose the Boiler Room Brawl.
I love that choice.
My
That's
number
great.
5.
For the record, there were actually 3. The third one was, and I can't remember. I can't even remember this now. Looking back, I'm so ashamed of myself remembering this off the top of my head. I don't know if it was an official Boiler Room Brawl or not, but it was Mankind being put through the paces by Triple H and running the company in early 2000, late 99. He had a Boiler Room Brawl with Santa Claus, who turned out to be the Outlaws and DX. It was such a cluster, but yeah. So they went from this brilliance in 96 to the cluster that was the Big Show match in 99, which even Foley has said himself, why are we doing this? Trying to turn this kid babyface. So how do we keep the crowd from booing him? Don't put him from the crowd. Put him in the back of the Boiler Room. To a Santa Claus infused Boiler Room Brawl with tie and dress shirt clad Mankind. Do yourselves a favor, watch this Boiler Room Brawl and appreciate what it is, and then just pretend it never happened again.
Yeah.
So this is great.
The last 4 on my list are all WrestleMania matches.
All right. There we go. Good to know.
So let's just get the ball rolling here. Number 4. My number 4 is the first time Taker had a repeat opponent at WrestleMania.
Oh.
The WrestleMania that I still call the last great WrestleMania. The Return of the Dead Man.
Oh, my God.
Versus Kane.
Still one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
And I know when we did the Kane show, I praised the 14 match instead of this one.
Right.
But that was because of Kane's outing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what it took to put Kane down. The fact that Kane was able to hang with The Undertaker when he was still very much an untested commodity.
Yep.
This one was all about the return to the darkness.
Yes.
And Kane selling it to Triple H levels, like we've talked about when Mick would come out and expose the cactus shirt, and Triple H sold the hell out of it. Man, when Paul Bearer came out and when Taker came out and Kane's all selling, no, you're dead. I buried you. Sold the shit out of this.
Right up to the moment the physicality starts. Because he's like reaching out like he's not there. Undertaker does. It's like everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the mouth, right, Tyson? Bam! Oh shit! Here we go.
And the return of Paul Bearer.
Oh my God, Paul was
match.
so personal.
Just hearing those words over the loudspeaker. Oh yes,
man! I've never heard the garden pop for 2 words like that in my life. So good.
So good. And again, Kane did what Kane does. He sold the shit out of that match to make Taker look good, coming back after only a couple of months between Survivor Series 03 and being buried, and then March of 04 and being resurrected.
What's funny about this moment, and I it's not on my list, but I'll mention it now. When he got injured by the Big Show in late 02 and got thrown off the SmackDown stage, and they announced he was coming back for the Royal Rumble, everybody was cocksure we were getting the return of the Dead Man. And his music hit at number 30, and it was "You're Gonna Pay," and the bike came down the ramp. We're like, oh, you're back, cool, but okay. I can't speak for you because we weren't hanging out a lot at that point.
I didn't even know you yet.
Huh?
I didn't even know you yet.
Oh, 03, that's true.
We didn't meet till 05.
Okay, so the minute that payloader went up and Vince dropped that right hand and Kane raised his hand, I'm like, all right, we're getting him back now for sure. No doubt about it now. They buried the biker. We're good. And it's exactly what happened. It was wonderful. It was everything about that, including the match. Interesting. I mean, it was kind of, I won't call it sloppy because I'm no worker. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But compared to some of the other stuff, it was sloppier than. But everything about that, the entrances, the match, the moments of that were just so Undertaker pure, WrestleMania pure. It was beautiful.
You know, I almost am willing to forgive sloppiness because a feud this long standing deserves a little bit of that, holy shit, I wasn't expecting this, so my move may not look as crisp as it should if I had time to really plan for this.
Yep, exactly.
So the sloppiness works to their advantage in the storytelling in this case.
Right, especially with Kane.
We're still not Ultimo Dragon freaking slipping in his only WrestleMania appearance.
Yeah.
Sloppy.
Yeah.
This storytelling, the sloppiness made sense and added to it.
Because you have to figure, in the storyline context, Kane's caught flat-footed because he was not prepared for this. He was prepared to not have him come back. So
exactly.
You know, it works. You're right.
My number 3 is going to be controversial. And I'm just going to put it on the screen.
Okay.
WrestleMania 30.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah.
You know, I know Taker got knocked a little bit loopy in the beginning of the match.
Yeah, a little bit.
But the fact that he was still able to go through the entire match, make Brock look like $1 million, Brock able to take care of Taker so he doesn't get any more hurt.
Yes.
Let's not sell Brock short as much as I know you love to.
Well, yeah.
You know, Brock very easily could have just gone into business for himself once he knew Taker was loopy, but he made sure that Mark was taken care of for the whole rest of the match.
Right.
Like a professional should.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while I still sometimes question the streak ending there, I do always come back to the million question. If not Brock, who?
At
Brock
that point,
was the most legitimate athlete, not named Kurt Angle, that the WWE had under contract.
and Kurt was still on the other side of the fence there. So yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, Brock was a mixed martial arts champion, an NCAA champion. Love him or hate him, it worked for Brock to end the streak.
It did.
And again, this is one of the many moments where it could have just been over for Taker. The streak is over. What else is there for him at that point? Let it go. Leave at WrestleMania 30. Nice round number. 22 was unlucky. 22, you bust in blackjack. He went 21-0, and then he went 21-1.
True.
He should have just ended it at 21. Blackjack, done with it. You know me in numbers. I've always read into that. 22 is a bust.
Yep.
Brock was number 22.
Yep.
And it was maybe not their greatest encounter, but goddamn if it wasn't the best story they ever told. And
it was definitely their most.
Heyman's face will forever be etched into my mind.
Yeah. That fan's face and Paul's face are definitely everything on that.
Because match. I still wonder sometimes if Paul knew or if that was genuine reaction.
Right.
That is how good it was.
Yeah.
If Paul knew, give that man a freaking Oscar.
Yep.
Well, technically an Emmy, it was television.
Yeah.
But
if he didn't
know,
yeah,
even better.
And if you didn't know, give Vince McMahon a smack in the head for causing a heart attack on a guy that size of Heyman. Jesus.
Again, I know that one's controversial, but
it's funny you mentioned my dislike of Brock. Up until the last Raw documentary came out, this was a big part of it. We all know the other part of it's John. Don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. But learning that Brock also left along with Vince to go to the hospital was very cathartic, I think is how you say the word for me as a fan and as a admirer of these athletes and what they do, and not having liked Brock for so long. Learning that beneath all that beast there is a heart that does beat like a genuine human being was very difficult for me to process, but at the same time it was like, oh, okay. I found myself briefly stepping off of that you big dumb son of a bitch, you let stuff get out of hand moment with him, because of what happened with John. But yeah, the fact that he rode shotgun with Vince and went to the hospital with made sure that Mark came out okay was very just, I mean, you figure Brock's one of the biggest stars in the company. You figure Vince owns the damn company. WrestleMania is going on. And they're both at the hospital down the street. They're not in the Superdome anymore. That's how important Mark Calloway is and always will be to the company.
Yeah. Which brings us to my number 2.
Yes.
And honestly, my number 2 could be my number 1. My number 1 could be my number 2. It was a coin flip between the two of them.
Okay.
Number 2 is another moment where it should have ended after.
Okay.
Because it was the end of an era.
Yep.
We talked about this match ad nauseum. There's that word again. During our Hell in a Cell show back in October.
Yep.
So I'm not going to get too much in depth with it again. If you want to know our feelings on that, once this is over, go back to the archives here on the Jeff Meacham Network. Give that episode a rewatch. But this and everything about this match, from the Taker trying to challenge Hunter to the match and Hunter refusing, to Hunter conceding and saying he'll only do it in the cell, to Shawn Michaels being added as the special guest referee to try to swing things in Triple H's favor, to card placement, to the final image of the three of them at the top of the ramp embracing each other. You know, the Madison Square Garden curtain call revisited, where it wasn't shunned and people having to do hog pen matches as punishment as a result.
Right.
I mean, what more can be said about this match that we haven't already said?
Yeah, we watched this match together at the apartment, and I've always half jokingly, half serious that I was just as much of the mess as Shawn Michaels was refereeing this thing, just because it was so emotional.
But it really, that is another one that should have been it for Taker.
If you're 20-0.
Yeah, 20-0 in a match called End of an Era inside of the cell. Hang it up.
With arguably the two people other than Austin that he'd really defined that part of his career with.
Yeah.
All right, number one.
If that's my number two, there can only be one number one.
It can only be one. It's not Lord of the Rings. Yep, there you go.
WrestleMania 25, Taker Michaels.
There you go.
And I really contemplated between this one, the rematch, and the original Hell in a Cell.
Right.
And even the Rumble casket match where Shawn hurt his back, which ended his career for years.
Yep.
Those were the four that went through my head for this feud.
Wow.
And I always kind of liked this original outing at Mania more than the rematch.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with the entrances. Shawn coming down from the heavens, Taker coming up from hell.
Yep.
But this is another one where I kind of feel like that was the pinnacle. They could have ended Taker's career here.
Definitely.
You know, not to say that the rematch and then the follow-up match with Hunter and then End of an Era weren't all great matches. All those leading to the Punk match, which then led to the streak being ended.
Yep.
You know, any point through those matches, it could have come to an end.
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely.
I don't think anybody would have really been mad if Shawn had ended it, if Hunter had ended it, even if Punk had ended it, because Punk at least would have gained something out of it, being still a younger talent.
Yep.
You know, yeah, he had had his 434-day reign. He had been ECW champion, 2-time world champion, or 3-time world champion. He had been IC and tag. But to add that notch in the belt of being the guy to end the streak, with Punk being the best in the world at that point.
Yes.
I don't think anybody would have been pissed.
I don't think so either.
I think part of what pissed people off about Brock doing it is because Brock was a part-timer.
Yeah.
And Taker, for lack of a better term, was a part-timer at that point too.
Right.
Taker by design, because he only needed that one match per year.
Right.
That special attraction, which is what Brock was brought back in to be.
Originally,
you don't want
yes.
him on every show. You want him to be a special attraction. I think that's why so many people got pissed at Brock ending it, because he was part-time. Had Punk done it, I don't think it would have been met with as much resistance.
Right.
Roman doing it when he did. Granted, the streak had already ended at that point,
Right.
but that Roman had something to gain out of it.
Yeah.
Taker had always called himself the big dog that runs the yard, and Roman was trying to lay claim to that big dog label.
Yeah.
So for the new big dog to beat the big dog,
and that
made
send-off
sense.
they gave him after that match just told everybody this is it.
Leaving everything in the ring.
Literally.
That should have been it.
Yeah. And that's a small part of me that goes, did he really need to come back and pop John for 2 minutes? Is that really necessary? You know what? Shut up. Because in storyline, John punked him out. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that because he went over the line. No question about it. But yeah, again, both times he's lost at Mania, like definitively lost. Like, okay, let's cut it. But again, great list, as I knew it would be from you. I mean, like I said, you're still consider yourself a part-time at best fan, but Undertaker was the guy when you were a fan. For the primary time you've been a fan, he was the guy. So I knew your list would be stellar.
It didn't matter if he was babyface or heel. I was always a Taker fan.
Yep.
You know, and honestly, you can run down again the opponents on this list. Orton, always been a fan. Styles, always been a fan. RVD, had personal issues once upon a time, but as a wrestler, always been a fan. Punk, Hardy, had my times when I lost faith in Hardy, but for the most part, I was always a fan of him and a big supporter. Foley, Kane, Brock, even with the exception of what happened at Mania 20, I was pretty much a Brock fan his entire run. I supported him in UFC. When he came back, I popped.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I had no real issue with Brock. Hunter, there were times when I didn't like him, especially that, you know, time when he had a stranglehold on the belt there.
Right.
You know, the Reign of Terror, as it's called. But for the most part, always been a Hunter guy. Liked him in DX.
Was great with our kids.
Corporation. Liked him in Evolution. You know, it was just that Reign of Terror where I was like, okay, you've had the belt long enough, dude. Get rid of it.
Right.
Michaels was already gone for the most part when I came into it. He was around as commissioner.
Right.
I popped hard when he came back from his injury.
Oh, yeah.
Joined the NWO. You know, had those matches against Hunter. Everybody on my list is somebody that I am an avid supporter of.
Yes.
Along with the Dead Man. I'm curious to read the comments and see what you guys had to say about my list. Before we get to Jeff's list, though, let's take a look at this little bit trailer and see what's coming up next month.
Right here on the Jeff Meacham Network.
let's get to your list. We've already fed people my 10 Undertaker matches, and thank you for that praise. You know,
of course.
I always sit here sometimes and wonder if my lists are up to snuff.
Right.
You know, so, and I fully am aware that you're going to sit here, hold my eggnog, and just plow through these with matches that are probably better than mine. But when I can get the praise that I get from you, that, you know, those are good entries, good selections, you understand my logic and my reasoning because we've always been there.
Right.
We've always been on the same frequency where we may not always agree. At least we understand why the other does what they do. So the fact that you get the reasoning behind my lists and my choices, and you can give me that Jeff Meacham seal of approval, makes it good for me.
I will say this. We do have 3 matches on both lists. 2 of them are in the same location on the list at that.
Ooh.
And one match is only one spot off from where you put it.
Wow. All right.
Like I said, your list, the fact that we went an hour, like you said, surprised both of us off air. We're talking about off air here just during the break here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, you have a really solid list. And like I said, the fact that we share 3 matches, 2 of them in the same spot on the list, just completely floored me. I'm not going to lie. This one's not one of those, though. Number 10 is one that nobody really seems to talk about when it comes to his career. And I think it's an important step for him because it leads to somewhere that we thought, more than likely, a lot of us thought he was never going to go again. So number 10 is him winning the 2007 Royal Rumble match.
Okay.
Granted, he's not in the full match. He's never been in a full Royal Rumble matches in his career. He's done quite a long term in matches over the years. But this win here at the Royal Rumble, which does tie into my list 2 other times as we go along here. Actually, more than 2 times, quite a few times. Story means a bitch. I hate you. But it was that moment that when it told everybody, all right, I've had my fun being a gimmick guy. I've had my fun, you know, putting the people over and helping Randy along and dealing with that Mark Henry bullshit last year. I want a title again. I want the world title again. Whatever championship, I want to be a world champion in this company again. I won the Rumble. You, John, you, Lashley, you, Batista. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And it just went on from there. We went to WrestleMania and he became champion became world heavyweight champion for the first time because of this Rumble win. So this was his stamp of, all right, I'm getting serious again. I'm tired of screwing around. I've been in gimmick matches for these years. I want my shit back. So figure he had been champion since he lost in that triple threat, which he wasn't technically beaten in that fall. Let's not forget that. The Rock pinned Kurt Angle. So he hadn't been champion for almost 5 years, and he didn't lose it himself technically. So he came back. All right, I done been buried, literally. I want my title back. I love it. Great moment here.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Do you think? I know the ECW title was beneath Undertaker, so let's not even make that a point.
Okay.
But do you think that maybe he should have gone for Lashley? Because you figure Cena had already been made. Right. Batista had already been made. Lashley could use the rub that the dead man would have brought him, even though Lashley would have lost the belt to Taker.
Right.
Because, you know, the streak was still in full swing at that point. There's no way Lashley was going to survive. But with Lashley's amateur background and his style and his MMA, all things that we know kind of endear to Mark, do you think that maybe going after Lashley would have been better. Maybe not even it probably would have been a better match all the way around, because Batista was never the greatest worker. I said what I said.
Okay.
But it also would have given Lashley more of that rub, which, yeah, he got that being in Trump's corner at
I was just
Mania.
going to say.
I mean, that was a gimmick.
Right.
He could have had a main event slot at Mania defending the title against the Phenom.
I think if Vince hadn't had the long-term plan of having Lashley in the match with Donald Trump involved, I think it would have been cool. But I think that as much as we give Vince shit for not having long-term planning, I think that was well in the books already. I think that Vince had his guy because Umaga was such a force already, and he had that match with Cena at the Rumble the same night. And you figure they're going into Mania. They got to have Undertaker have a world title match. He's going to win the Rumble. You figure it was supposed to be Cena and Triple H again.
Yes.
And Hunter tore his quad in the match with DX against Rated RKO. So you figure Vince has his plans, and he's already set in stone. So when Hunter gets hurt, okay, we'll put Shawn in there instead. That's an easy sidestep, no problem. So with everything in place, I don't think it works. But had that long-term planning with Dom not been in place, I would love to have seen it. It would have been cool, and it would have been cool for Lashley. And he may not have left the company so abruptly that summer if that had been the case. Because you figure he's not selling for the McMahons for 3 months after that as a result. So
yeah, watching Vince become ECW champion wearing that horrid do-rag.
Which whatever soul I did have left being a ginger at that point, the ECW fan of me got sucked out of there violently. Anyway, number 9 is one of the ones we share. The Boneyard match. Again, we talked about it. Probably the best send-off they could give him at that point.
Yeah.
He rides in with Metallica, which for our generation, yes, please. Rides out with the same song. Yes, please. And literally rides off into the darkness. Ends his career. I mean, against, arguably, the greatest worker of this generation. In a match where the wrestling field of AJ Styles really can't be counted on here. You're in a goddamn graveyard or boneyard or whatever,
Yeah.
And yeah, you got your boys. You got Luke and Carl. And yeah, you've got those Druid guys. But at the end of the day, it's got to be you surviving a horror movie.
Yeah. There's no rope for you to bounce off of, AJ.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? I forget which one it was. Whoever took the bump off the top of the roof there was Luke or Carl, too. Shit. You ain't seeing me doing that shit.
I would have loved to have seen AJ do the spiral tap off the roof.
Dude, you would have heard the pop out of my chair from there, brother. Oh my God, that would have been so cool to watch.
It's one of the things I wish he'd bring back.
He's brought that out once, and if you missed it, you missed it. And he's done that once. Everyone was like, "Oh my God!" And that was it. Because
he needs to make that like a Mania tradition. Like use it in your Mania match, and then
yeah. Because it is a dangerous move. It was dangerous for 20-something baby face short hair AJ. It's definitely dangerous for almost 40-something AJ now. So
it would get the reaction that Brock would have gotten if he had successfully landed that shooting star. Because he had done it in OVW so many times that for him to pull that out at Mania with what everyone assumes Brock Lesnar is by his size and everything, if he had hit that move, people would have been crapping themselves in the seats there.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Opposed to the bad way they were.
So if AJ, if you're watching, brother, please spiral tap at Mania.
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Seriously, the best thing would have been a spiral tap in the feud with Cena.
Yeah.
Because then you've got the face of TNA from 02 versus the face that could be, oh my God. Anyway. All right. Great match. A great cinematic thing that really could have been a lot worse, and it turned out just beautiful.
Yeah. While we're on it, even though it's off topic, Frankie, if you're watching this, I want to see the flux capacitor come back. God damn it. Okay, go on.
I'm pretty sure he did that once in AWT recently too, which again, for the three of us, it's like, yeah, everybody's like, I don't get the gimmick. Like it's a Spanish fly. It's
Brian,
like, no, it's not.
cattle
It's the
mutilation.
flux capacitor.
Cattle mutilation, Brian.
That he's done. That he's done already. That he's done AEW. We've seen that. So yeah, that was awesome. All right. So we talked about the Rumble win in 2007 at number 10. And I know you kind of shit on Big Dave a little bit there and the work and stuff. So here's my yeah. I mean,
Big Dave's work is about as shitty as that graphic came out.
Well, you know what? Trying to find a graphic that didn't turn out shitty on this match for some reason. We're in the HGWW era already, but I can't find whatever. Anyway, again, Big Dave's never been the best worker in the history of the business. I'm not even going to front, right? But this one, we've talked about this, you and I, a lot over the years. If it wasn't Randy, could it have been Dave? I was a believer. I was sure it was done. I'm not going to lie. Even though he had a great showing at the Rumble, even though he's the dead man, even though, part of me was worried. I was like, is this like, especially when Batista kept coming back for more, I was concerned about it. He made me believe the streak could end. And that's what you're supposed to do at Undertaker WrestleMania, is you're supposed to make you be made to believe it could be it. So I was okay with it. And it was a great, again, I feel their best one-on-one match was, as far as overall story being told, was the draw on SmackDown with the cage match, because it led to Mark Henry coming down and it led to the Rated R cash-in, which was a great thread that opened up the floodgates for number 7 and the feud with Edge that went on for over a year. Now, again, Undertaker, Edge, pick your match. You're good to go. Right? We talked about this. We talked about Adam last month and how, any match with anybody, you're good to go with Edge for the most part. Miguel Perez, sorry, brother. But other than that, Edge and Undertaker just danced divinely. They always did. I am a fan of the match at WrestleMania because I was there. I'm a fan of their Hell in a Cell match. We talked about that last month as on our list. So this match, I feel, gets a little bit too much flack because of the nature of the banishment stuff and the fact that, well, if I win, he's banished. It's like, okay, well, that means he has to win because you're not going to lose Undertaker. And then we did. It was like, oh, okay. And then he was back right away, and he literally sent Edge to hell after the Hell in a Cell match. It was like, okay, we're getting a little gimmicky here. But the match itself, Undertaker in a ladder match, we talked about it earlier with the Hardy stuff. Undertaker ladder matches don't always mix very well. But again, with the ladder match masters, Jeff Hardy and Edge, things are good. Yeah. And this was a great, great ladder match, TLC match, whatever you want to call it, for the world title, essentially for his career in WWE. Great storytelling here.
It's one of those things that really helped change the idea of what the match is supposed to be, much like the Rock Triple H match from SummerSlam. The ladder match was always supposed to be kind of this gimmicky, fly-y thing, or at least that's what everyone thinks about it when they think about ladder match these days.
Right.
These matches were gritty, grimy brawls.
Yep.
The ladder is just one more prop that I'm going to use to beat your ass with.
Pretty much. So, number 6 is the other identical match. We just talked about him a second ago. Jeff Hardy, Undisputed Championship on Raw. Again, Jeff Hardy keeps his head on straight. He's a made man the rest of his life, the rest of his career. Undertaker showed him that respect that Undertaker, Big Evil, the Big Red Devil, whatever you want to call him, did not show anybody. Certainly didn't show Maven earlier in the year. Certainly didn't show the Nature Boy or the Rattlesnake or the Hulkster. But this little engine that could, this kid that just would not, you talk about Matt Hardy, I will not die. Dude, Jeff nearly got decapitated a few times in this match, and he refused to stay down.
Yep.
So, again, if you were or ever could have been a Jeff Hardy fan, this is probably why. because
it was very reminiscent to the old Mikey Whipwreck, Tommy
yes,
Dreamer matches in ECW.
yep,
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
yeah,
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
yep,
It's how they got over.
yeah. I mean, really, it was one of
And
those things where you just everything clicked.
yeah, it's like not to say that Jeff wasn't already over because he most definitely was,
Right.
but it's what elevated him to this guy could be a champion one day.
Yeah.
That match right there.
None of us ever, I think, believed Jeff Hardy could be a world champion until this match.
I did.
But much like RVD beating the Undertaker in a similar situation earlier in the year as undisputed champion, we never bought it, but it happened. The match with RVD was so in my brain that I was sure he was going to beat Hunter at Unforgiven for the world title. So Undertaker makes believers out of people. Win, lose, draw, whatever. Always has, always will. All right. Now, you mentioned I shit on Brock Lesnar. I feel rightfully so. We talked about this match last month. It was my number one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, on Hell in a Cell. If not, it was definitely up there in the list. But this, I feel, is their best match of their entire run together over the years they were together as opponents. Yes, the match at WrestleMania was much more dramatic for a very definitive reason. Yes, their match at SummerSlam in 2015 was controversial. Yes, their Hell in a Cell in 2015 was okay. This is it for real. But this one here, I talked about it briefly, or not briefly. I kind of went all over it. But everybody bled, including Paul. Undertaker goes in with a broken hand. Brock is still, still very not green, but greenhorn Brock Lesnar. He's a young champion. He's having to prove himself. He's taking out everybody. He's taking out The Rock. He's taking out Hogan. He's taking out, everybody in his path, including the Hardys, including a lot of people. One King of the Ring. But I still maintain that him definitively pinning the Undertaker, walking out of that cell, climbing on top of it, and raising the Undisputed Championship over his head. It was WWE Championship at that point, but the Undisputed belt, and saying, "Hey, I'm the guy now." As much as we talk about Roman, Brock on top of that cell with the Undertaker laid out in the middle of the ring, belt over his head. It was like, all right, this is my time. And again, the storytelling notwithstanding, because him getting screwed at Survivor Series with Big Show and Heyman and the thing with Angle was a great story going to WrestleMania. But I still say they cut his title reign off too quick at the knees. Because you figure he rolled through that spring and summer. He bludgeoned Hulk Hogan out of the company. Damn near squashed The Rock for the title. And held his own for 2 months with The Undertaker. And again, a made man because of The Undertaker. Number 4 for me kind of piggybacks off your number 5. And I say that because you mentioned that it was the match the rivalry really got started and really picked up pace. I say this is where it actually started. Because you figure Mankind attacked the Undertaker the night of WrestleMania. And back then there were only 5 major pay-per-views and then in your houses. So figure Undertaker wins at WrestleMania, defeats Diesel on Diesel's way out. He's facing Justin Hawk Bradshaw. God bless JBL for putting up with that bullshit. And Mankind attacks, and off we go. And the King of the Ring, not only do they have a marquee match at the big show of the early summer, Undertaker loses because Paul Bearer accidentally strikes with the urn, leading to the mandible claw and the fall. And then we wonder what just happened. Did Undertaker just lose pretty decisively? And we're left to wonder about what's going to happen next. And then 2 months later, shit went down in Cleveland. And like Foley has said in his book, they had been feuding all year, but they really picked up the pace after SummerSlam. There's no doubt about that. The Boiler Room Brawl really sent them into the trajectory that led to Buried Alive, Survivor Series, the It's Time, the Armageddon match with Terry Gordy, the Executioner, and then the Revenge of the Taker match after WrestleMania when he became champion again, and then Hell in a Cell, 13 months later. This rivalry will forever be the reason Mick Foley is a WWE Hall of Famer, not just a guy that came over from WCW and managed a decent career in WWE. Without the Undertaker, Mick Foley is not, for my money, elevated to where he got to.
I can agree with that.
And that match at King of the Ring, again, when you hear King of the Ring and hear Undertaker Mankind, you immediately go to Pittsburgh, right? I mean, there's no way your brain doesn't do that. You can't help it. But if you go to Milwaukee here, well, yeah, Austin became King of the Ring, and that was a big deal. And they had the Shawn Michaels British Bulldog blow-off, which was great. This match does not get talked about enough, and it sucks. It's great, a great little thread in what ultimately became one of the greatest stories of all time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So number 3, much like your number 1 and number 2, my number 2 and number 3 could be either or, right? Number 3 for me is the first real battle these guys had that really stood out and led to some greatness in the next little while and overall in their careers. Shawn Michaels in the original Hell in a Cell match against The Undertaker at Bad Blood in your house. And yes, that graphic is grossly edited. There's no sponsors listed there like it was in the original graphic. Just tired of looking at the damn PlayStation logo, to be honest with you. For real. This match, this gimmick is born here. Kane debuts here. Michaels is running from the creature the entire match. He's in a horror movie, but yet he's the heel. He's running for his damn life from the conscience that is the monster. And he survives. And because of the monster's equal, he wins. And it's a great story told. And it leads them both. Michaels, unfortunately, had to retire because of the back injury with the casket match. But, both of these guys set the tone for what Hell in a Cell, had not made a gimmick pay-per-view, could still be. And was for many years. My number 2.
Thanks to Edge and Rollins, kind of got back to.
Like we said, well, no, yeah, okay. Edge and Rollins was great at Crown Jewel. We got asked let's see here, a few weeks ago now, the Great Cherry Show. God, everything's blending together. Our least favorite Hell in a Cell match. We both immediately said Wyatt and Rollins because of how it just completely killed everything in that gimmick. And it's like somewhere Boss Man Taker going, "Thank you, God, that match exists because God, we sucked first." But these guys here set the standard, and then Mick Foley went up and said, hold my body parts as I fly off this thing, because it just completely escalated it to heights maybe not necessary in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, as looking back as human beings, but as fans, you're like, God, oh my, just what? Wow. So my number 2 is also one that we share, but not in the same spot because it was your number 1. Michaels Undertaker. I mean, people have been singing the praises of this match for 12 and a half years, almost 13 years now. I can't gush over it enough. It is probably the best match in WrestleMania history, pure wrestling match style, toe-to-toe.
Yeah, I was going to say, from the moment these guys got back behind that curtain, it's been dubbed the greatest Mania match of all time. And right. I don't remember hearing anybody say that something that's happened since then has been better.
No.
Like I said, end of an era comes close.
Yeah. When you figure that up until 2009, the greatest match in WrestleMania history was from 1987. I mean, it took 22 years. for it to even be close to being in discussion. And like you said, since then, good matches, great matches, but not the best. All right, so everybody at home's wondering, okay, Jeff's only gone 30 minutes. He's already at number one.
Seriously, like I figured that your half would go as long as my half.
And not only that, but if it wasn't Michael's Taker, who the hell is it? I mentioned the 2007 Rumble as both a starting point and an ending point for the Undertaker. So when he returned as the Dead Man in 2004, had the little thing with Kane, kind of just treaded water for a good chunk of that year, up until Randy Orton came into his life the following year. That entire 2005 was about Randy Orton. 06, again, he just kind of sits there. When you think back, you don't think a lot about 06. You think about the casket matches. Mark Henry. Yeah, okay. People forget that the 06 Rumble was what it was. Okay, you had Rey Mysterio winning the Rumble, which was a cool moment for everybody but Eddie Guerrero fans, for me personally, because it's just like, damn it, he stole the thunder. Still say it. I love Rey now, but whatever. Edge's reign ending in 3 weeks was an abomination on nature. It was terrible. But people forget how that Rumble ended. Kurt Angle retaining the world title and the gongs going off. And Undertaker riding on that chariot and making the lightning strike the ring posts and sending Kurt Angle down in a disheveled heap in the middle of the ring, which led us to No Way Out. And I feel this is the Undertaker's best match that I've seen him work, because he worked arguably the greatest worker in recent memory. AJ Styles, Shawn Michaels, whatever. Kurt Angle, even in 06, when he was still not 100% on top of his game, these two guys had a brief time to tell a story, and they wrote a classic that I would put up against any match in Undertaker's career, any match in Kurt Angle's championship reigns. These two guys had literally a month, 4 weeks, whatever it was, to Brian Cage get their shit in, and they did a wonderful job with it. And I feel that it is overlooked. I feel that it's not appreciated near enough. And I also feel we ruined our No Way Out show because it's a No Way Out match, and how can I be number one on my list now, right? But
spoiler alert.
Yeah, right. If you're watching in February,
a few months, people may forget about it.
Yeah, Men in Black. But yeah, that's my hot take. That was his best match, was against Kurt Angle at No Way Out.
Again, what do you guys think? What did you think of Jeff's list? Hopefully, if you're watching us live, the premiere, you're leaving your thoughts and comments over here.
They're probably going, thank God he took 30 minutes. He's done. Woo, let's go home.
If you're watching us later in the day on demand, you're leaving your thoughts and comments down here. But we are curious to see what you feel Undertaker's best matches are. Did we forget any? I'm sure we did. But like we said at the beginning, with a few exceptions, it's hard not to find a great Taker match. Like, everything else could be honorable mentions. These are just our favorites out of his 30-year career.
Yeah, and keep in mind,
subjective.
We're talking about Undertaker. If we went into Mark Calloway, like, granted, there's not a whole lot of pre-Undertaker stuff, but his match with Luger at the Great American Bash before he came over was decent too. So it's very hard to find him having worked a bad match up until post-streak stuff. Then it's like, okay, it was more of like, okay, this is kind of unnecessary. But I will say this: if you're watching this on the day premieres, it is Black Friday. Hopefully you've already done the shopping first thing in the morning, overnight, whatever. If you're going back out tonight after watching us, speaking from a pair of ex-retailers, please be careful. Please be courteous to the people in those uniforms, those name tags on.
I was going to say, not just to the employees,
but to
to
each
the
other.
fellow customers.
Yeah.
You know?
Realize that you are not the only one in the store, y'all. And, you know, you're not the only one that's trying to get that, you know, Blu-ray laser, whatever, laser disc. Wow, I aged my goddamn self there. Trying to get that 4K. There we go. 21st century, Jeff. 4K UHD player for $10 on clearance over there. You're not the only one to do it, kids. I mean, really.
The 70-inch flat screen for $200. Like, you're not the only ones out there trying to get these deals.
And if you do get one, send it my way. Because $200 for that's a steal. So send that shit over here. But yeah, just
if somebody else has it in their hands or their carts, it's not worth jail time for you to knock them down and snatch it out of their possession.
Yeah.
The employees don't set the prices. They don't make the rules. They're just paid to enforce them.
Nobody you're going to
think of us as the referees in pro sports, baby. We don't make the rules. We're just paid to enforce them.
Everybody you see in the store you walk into has not set those prices. If you're walking into Wally World, first of all, God bless you, you are insane. But those prices are set in a little bitty building in Arkansas by people that, you know, are above the pay grade enough to not even really give a shit what you think about their price settings, okay?
Yeah. So if you're shopping at a Wally World in Arkansas, maybe one of them had something to do with the pricing. The other 49 states, no.
Yeah.
Nothing.
The bottom line is courtesy and careful. Those are the two most important words today.
In the words of Bill S. Preston, Esquire, this is how I'm going to leave it here today.
Here we go.
Be excellent to each other. Pounds of gold.
2 weeks' time, when we bring another episode of Dads talking about even more old school, The Undertaker. And we'll get to that in the closing credits here. We're talking about the NWA and the 10 pounds of gold. So,
and we're not talking about MC Ren, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, DJ Yella. Not that NWA. No. Granted, that may be the more popular NWA. We're talking about the National Wrestling Alliance, the 10 pounds of gold, the most prestigious championship in wrestling history. I said what I said. I have not been programmed by Vince. I don't care. It's a beautiful thing.
There it is, baby. Mine's too far away to grab, but there it is. I love it. That's awesome. And that's what we're talking about in 2 weeks. In the Meech, and we will see you guys next time in December on the Dads, not always on wrestling.